Let's open up the mic once again. The mic is open. I'm Lum Hoshida. This week we are welcoming in Justin Lum, Fox 10 investigative reporter in Phoenix, Arizona. Our time together goes way back. He's from the Bay Area as well. We didn't know each other quite in this capacity when we are here overlapping. It's a big place. Also went to San Francisco State. Also, I didn't know him straight up at San Francisco State, but I got a rogue phone call when I was in Humboldt, California, my first job, and he said, "Hey, are you interested in doing this thing over in Tri-Cities, Washington?" And fast forward a few months, I was in Tri-Cities, Washington as a sports director. So he's the reason why I got there. We've stayed in touch, become very, very close throughout the time. He's an industry brother, a brother of all sorts. We went to Wrestlemania this year. And so we're bringing him on because his advice is vital for any up and coming newsy or someone who's maybe on the fence. If you like sports and you like news, he was doing both. And then news ultimately won out. And he's gone and made such a respected career out of it, being a leading voice on the Lori Vallow investigation. And so this might be the first conversation of many, but we're getting it going with Justin Lum, my BECA Bash bro. Justin Lum, my guy, we go back quite a way. Had to have him on at some point in the pod early on because you bring some validity. You class this place up. You make my little production seem cool. So we're bringing you on. Justin and I go back to our days in Tri-Cities, Washington. We were locking it down in the KEPR sports department. And that was Lum's last job as a sports guy, as they say, before he's gone on to do bigger and better things and do things that actually matter, as they would say. But Justin, thanks for coming on, my man, and joining me here on The Mic is Open.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. Bringing back some real good memories from those days.
Yeah, I'm wearing my Walla
And
Walla Sweets hat.
yeah,
I got our Wrestlemania shirt. We'll go over that in a little bit.
that's a good one.
It is, and we had some good memories over this last April. Yeah, this last April going to WrestleMania. So we're going to talk about that. It was quite the experience for both of us. But I always start this podcast with a simple, I don't know what you want to call it, a simple declaration. The mic is open, my friend. Do you have anything you want to get off your chest? Anything you need to say?
Well, I think you just sparked it for me. But first off, shout out to you for creating this space for guys like yourself, dads like yourself, people with similar backgrounds or representation, especially Asian Americans like us in the media, whether it's sports media, news media, just a space for us to talk and open up about our careers, our families. And I just think that's awesome that you've been able to keep that consistent and book some like awesome guests. And it's an honor to find the time to join in the chat. And then that shirt, reminds me obviously of the fun time we had WrestleMania weekend. And I actually just had a good time with some friends from the Bay Area who were visiting here over this past weekend, dads as well. And I think that's my declaration is that if you're a father, take some time when you can, breathe, kind of get back to your roots, get with the homies and whatever it is that you need to center yourself because life moves fast and sometimes you just need to get yourself some self-care, whatever that is. And that WrestleMania weekend that you brought up, I think that was great for us, even just a couple days or a few days, whatever it was, just to have fun, feel like a kid again. And then you just appreciate your family even more and you kind of recharge. So I think that's important for all parents. Dads, moms.
I think you got to remind yourself also of like who you were before kids came around and to not always lose touch of that because sometimes you're just like, oh, I'm a dad now, or, I have this news that I got to break or something like that. And you forget that you got to take time and still be the person that everybody in your life fell in love with or cared about. And there's a reason to do that. So we are going to get to dad advice as I always do here and representation as we do. But let's talk about going back. Tri-Cities, Washington, market 115, 120, 118. It fluctuated. It goes back to a phone call, though, that I got when I was in Humboldt, California, which was market 195, I do believe, my very first job. And it was a Twitter message or R.I.P. Twitter,
I
now
still have
X.
that message
Yeah.
probably in there.
And you're like, hey, what are you doing? We didn't really know each other. We didn't know each other really at all. Other than that, we just went to SF State around the same time, and we kind of had that
hmm
background of being BECA alums. And we
hmm
hopped on a phone call, and you're like, hey, Keeper, where I'm at, needs a sports director. I like what you're doing. You should
Yeah.
do it. And that's kind of how it all happened.
Yep. It was I don't know, it was just a cool moment that where, things work out the way they do and ultimately it changes your whole life, right? Like that that move for you takes you to Washington, which takes you to Hawaii, which gets you back home. Like everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And at the time, I think I was maybe a year out or whatever it was from my contract being over, and I was asked if I wanted to be the sports director. Shout out to Vince Sapienza, who was the guy who was my sports director and basically helped hire me on. Because just to give context, this job that I was in was a hybrid weekend sports anchor,
Hmm.
but you have to do news during the weekdays and MMJ and a lot of enterprise because not a lot of crazy stuff happens in the Tri-Cities. So you really have to try and be creative and find something that's newsworthy. But luckily, I had already had an interest in news and was just trying to figure out, okay, I can decide between sports and news at some point. And so that happens. Tom Yazwinski, our former
The
news director,
Yaz.
the Yaz says, "Hey, Vince said like it's yours if you want it," and I agree. But what do you want? And so he gave me a little advice and basically said, you can still love sports. You don't have to work in sports, and I think that if you do love news, you'll move up further. And I say, okay, let me think about that. And I think in my heart I already do like I don't want to go that route. I think I'm going to move on to my next gig. And so I was just looking at reels and that's how I came across yours and saw the connection to SF State. And I was like, well, I'll just reach out and see what happens. It's a small world. And then I find out that I was in class with your wife, or your then girlfriend, I should say, way
Yeah,
back
yeah.
in the day. And it's just like one of those things like small world.
Hmm.
And someone is connected somehow. And then I think from that point it was just like meant to be. And
Yep.
you became a Tri-Cities legend.
I was there for 4.5 years, and it was longer than I anticipated, but it ended up being okay. And I think that's also a good message to kids or young journalists who are getting out there, young broadcasters, that yeah, you want to move up, and what you did, you got
hmm
out, you moved in after your first contract, you got onto what you wanted to do next. But sometimes if you find a good spot that's working for you and it's giving you the opportunity, you don't have to rush off to the next spot,
Yeah.
right? Like it depends what you want to do and what the opportunities are given to you in said position.
Yeah, what's the room for growth?
Right.
What can you do to keep bettering yourself? And I think at that point I realized, well, if I'm going to go on and keep moving on in news, I think I've done what I had to do here for my 2 years, and let's move on to the next market. And what I saw with you is that I knew that you were in market 190 or whatever it was in Humboldt,
Yep.
and you did everything. And I
Yeah.
already knew, like, because I was in that same type of field, being in a small market, that you were shooting, editing, writing, producing your own show. And it just felt like a no-brainer. And the fact that you really knew every sport. Like, there wasn't a sport where you're like, you need more practice with that or just needed more experience. Like, you were just a sports guy all the way around. And then I was like, well, let's bring some more diversity in here too as well. So it was a no-brainer, and I'm glad that Tom ultimately made the decision to get you the job, and you made a good life there.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a great time. 4 years. I think, we had some good memories, met some good people, and I loved going to the Americans games. And
hmm
we're gonna do a little fun game here with our Tri-Cities connection. But for you, that position and a lot of entry level sports jobs are kind of a hybrid now, for sure. Now,
hmm
there's hardly ever a second guy in a sports department in those smaller markets. So you take on the news and sports job. You kind of reference it, but you
Yeah.
always knew that you were kind of testing the waters on both sides when you first initially took the job.
Yeah, so when I was an intern during my time at SF State, my first internship was at NBC Bay Area, and I got lucky that they had one more spot at the time because I almost took a internship at KTVU, Channel 2 in Oakland, but for sales. So who knows what could have been in my life if I take the sales internship, maybe I like it, who knows? But when the news internship came up and NBC Bay Area called, I was like, okay, perfect. And so I would take my early mornings because you're juggling classes at SF State, juggling my part-time job. I worked at the Boys and Girls Club. So my whole day for the most of the week is filled up. So I'm doing morning shifts, early morning shifts, unpaid intern, and commuting from San Leandro to San Jose just so I can shadow a photographer and a morning reporter, and do some stand-ups and just see how they do things. And I'm sitting in the live truck, dozing off as we go from place to place. But it was a great experience because it teaches you what the business is about, the grind, and if you like it or not. Like you're gonna learn real quick if you're cut out for it. And then there were some Friday nights where I shadow one of my mentors, George Kitayama, was a general assignment veteran reporter there, and he'd take us out to eat, and I got to learn a lot from him during those Friday nights and watch him do his thing. So I had that newsreel, and so when my first news director at Keeper, Robin Wotanik, said, "Hey, the caveat is you have to do news. Are you okay with that?" I had that reel ready, so I had those options, and that was good.
Yeah, and so for you, I think it made a lot of sense. There's also the side of it for me. I was like, I'm never taking a job that's a hybrid job
Hmm.
because I knew I never wanted to really go into the news world, and you sometimes see that transition happen, not because they loved it like you did, like you were like, oh, I'm gonna be good at this and you're gonna be
Yeah.
great, and you were, but they're like, oh well, this is just where there's more jobs, and so they go that route. So I think it's also good advice as we're talking about this is like, know what you want to do, and if you are open to both, taking a hybrid job isn't the end of the world, and I think it gets your foot in the door and then finding out what you want to do. But if you don't want to take the hybrid job, that's also not a bad thing either. Bottom line though, there's not a lot of jobs out there. If you get your foot in the door, you better take it.
And me and you have similar backgrounds. I feel like we're not right out of college, we didn't get our
No.
first TV job. Like I feel like it's hard to leave the Bay Area,
Yeah.
born and raised, and it's just that's all you know. So it took me a while to just say, all right, I'm doing it. Because to be honest, as crazy as it sounds now, I was a little bit intimidated at the MMJ aspect of doing that. I said, I don't know if I can do that. So when I was able to also, after this NBC Bay Area internship, I walked into the Raiders headquarters in Alameda based off a LinkedIn message to one of the producers there. I said, also an SFSU alum. So I used that as my in and just said, I just would like a tour, and got in there, showed them the portfolio. I already had things I had done, stand-ups and stuff I had done sports-wise, covering high school games for Get Sports Focus at the time. And so that got me in the door. So I was able to now become an associate producer after being an intern at the Raiders. So I knew I wanted to do sports, but I always had that newsreel for my internship in the back pocket,
Yeah.
thinking that I was going to be on NFL Network or Sports Center one day. And so this hybrid job was really the perfect thing because now in this situation, I could decide at some point what I liked. And as you know, with your time with me, I loved both. I love both the aspects of anchoring in sports and covering games and telling those stories, then also doing something that was hard news or something that was slightly investigative. I really did.
Yeah. What was it about the news side of things that ultimately won out? Was it strictly because the numbers game, or is it also because you just were like, I'm really good at this? And I know your drive, I know your work ethic, and that part of that comes from your sports background, I believe, and we've talked about this before. But once you made that decision, you went full into it, and you haven't looked back since.
Yeah, I think that with sports reporting, you get a lot of numbers and statistics, but it's how do you present that to your viewers and the fans that makes sense and tell a story? Because numbers are one thing, but how does it translate? So I was able to take that, and with news, there's very much similarities, whether it's crime data, calls for service, or just things like that. We're like, okay, this data can help the story or give a viewer more context. So I think that was always a smooth transition. And I just always had this capacity to cover the tough stories and felt like they didn't phase me or intimidate me. And I had this competitiveness where I wanted to get interviews that followed up on big stories. And as I did more and more of that, I just felt like, okay, maybe this is the right path for me. but I was still kind of grappling with, well, I should still make a sports resume just in case. But my next market was Fresno, and it was a good position because it's full on night side news, and I was only 3 hours away from home, so it worked out.
Yeah, do you think I should say, how much do you think your background in sports had helped that transition to? I just think there's something so competitive about the sports side, and then also like when we get into Friday nights on the
Yeah.
sports side of small market, it's like you're going a million miles per hour, and
Yep.
there's no stopping. And I think to be a good news reporter and do what you're doing, investigate, you got to go nonstop. Like you got to push the pedal to the metal to try to get your sources, to get the information that's prevalent, that's new. And we've seen our fair share of the people coming in and out of the small market circle.
Mhm.
Not all of them have that.
Yeah, I think with sports, like you said, the multitasking, whether you're shooting and editing, but the information, keeping track of all these games, players, just a lot of information. You're holding a lot of research, so I think that translates to news very well. So that I don't know, and I think the sports background, just playing sports in my childhood and into
Yeah.
my young adulthood, I think that grind you embrace that grind. It's almost like you grapple onto that mentality like you're an athlete in a way, and you're entering this industry with that grind and that mindset. I think it helps you push through, because there's some, hard, crazy nights of breaking news where, you haven't eaten dinner, all you got is, water and a granola bar, and you're out in the middle of nowhere, and you've got a live shot after live shot, and you just lock in. And that mentality has helped me push through on big stories that took me out of the market, where you're traveling and you're just like nonstop and you haven't slept a lot. There's an adrenaline rush that you get out of it too, and that sort of gives you that extra boost. And it's definitely something, I don't know, you either have it or you don't. You learn really quick.
Yeah, and I think some people aren't used to failing, and when you play
Mhm.
sports a lot, like you're a quarterback, you throw an
Yeah,
interception, you still got to go out the next series and try and score a touchdown. It doesn't matter if you failed the series before. And I think sometimes we've seen over the time where the young ones coming into the newsroom who haven't failed in their life, they don't know what failure looks like, and they don't know how to
yeah.
rebound from failure. So I think failure is good for people, for young kids, and just handling that aspect of things. So now you make the transition to news, and you've gone to Fresno, you've done your thing there, and then you go to Arizona. You're at Fox 10. You've been there for now, I think this is your third rotation. Is that right?
Yeah, 6 years. Yeah,
Yeah.
2019 I started, January 2019.
And I remember going back, like you're like, I think you text me. You're like, hey, I think this. We connected somewhere. It's probably a text or phone
Hmm.
call. I was like, hey, I'm kind of on this story right now that's kind of like coming up, and I think it might be kind of crazy. And
Yeah.
lo and behold, we're like in 2025. So this is 6 years later at this point for me, and you're still on it. We're talking about Lori Vallow and how you've kind of been one of the leading voice, if not the leading voice, for this whole thing. And I don't want to get into details of that because you have your own podcast and everything
Yeah.
that comes with that, and your own reporting. But when you first got it, was there anything that stood out to you where you're like, oh, this could make a huge significant impact on my career? Or was there a point in the investigation as you're reporting that you're like, oh yeah, this is either going to make or break what I'm seeing as a substantial investigative reporter?
I think at the beginning, you're just trying to figure out the pieces of the puzzle and trying to figure out, how can I report on this and get all the right sources and all the information? And already on the surface, there were a lot of just suspicious things and just fascinating elements to it. At some point down the line, as I had covered it for months, and crazy things were happening, developments, at that point already it had taken my career to another route without me even knowing. Like, it's already there, and really it's on me to just keep going and keep working hard and covering the story as hard as I can, and finding every angle and finding every scoop that I could. But yeah, in the beginning it was just, you have this woman who's herself is missing, but really at the center of it, her two children are missing, and the man that she's with now and married to, they are just persons of interest, not even suspects. And then you learn about that man and how he's like this doomsday prophet, so-called, and fictional author and writes about the end of time. So there's a very serious belief here. Like to other people, it may sound crazy now, this world, but to them, they believed it. And that's where the concern came for these two children. You realize that there's this very strong tie to Arizona and how, her brother, who was dead at the time that we found out about the story, had shot and killed her husband. So you wonder why that happens. You figure out about like life insurance policies and potential money motives and just more dark, disturbing things that have been said about him through divorce paperwork. And so you're in this rabbit hole, and the whole question is, where are these children? We find out that they had been murdered, buried in the ground. And so there's just layer after layer, religious beliefs, money motivations, and then also this air or energy about the suspect where people just could not stop talking about her, criticizing her, asking questions, and it's just got all those elements of just a bombshell story, and I just happened to be presented with it at the right time and never looked back.
How did you manage from the personal side or the professional side? Just you, when it starts taking a next step in your career, where like, because we all always talk about, and I talked this with Ahmed Freed a couple episodes about,
Mhm.
we always talk about the entry level job, what you need to do when you get in the foot door, how to become a professional. But now your career's taken a different step, right? You've established who you are, and now you're kind of turning the corner into being a recognizable voice where you've done some stuff with Netflix, you've had these other interviews. How have you
Yeah.
managed that shift in your career?
I think it's just I think family helps. And it may sound cliche, but I always say that becoming a dad, and even, of course, from the beginning, getting married. So just for context, when I got the job here, I was engaged to my fiance, Laura, at the time. We had been together since pre-Tri-Cities Day. So we had been together since 2012. She's ride or die and had been with me through the long distance, reuniting in Fresno, getting engaged. I mean, and it was good to have someone that was not necessarily in the business, but could also understand.
Hmm.
And so getting married later in 2019 and having a child, really during the pandemic, this 2021, the pandemic babies, I think becoming a dad just made me more compassionate than I was. It made me see things differently. And somehow it just makes you better at what you do. That could go for every type of job. I don't know. For that's what I felt for me. So I think the balance came from, all right, I know it's bedtime and I'm gonna try to put down this phone and not check this email or make sure I post this to social media for my report or whatnot. You try to juggle it sometimes, but I think there's just more, when it's time to breathe and get to the family. There's just more balance. But then there's more focus because you have to be efficient with your time.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing is right, your time management when you are
Yeah.
a dad and when you have these type of jobs that we do. Yours is more time consuming than mine at this point. I work mostly just when the Sharks are playing, and so that's been nice for mine. But for you, you go like 12-hour days, 10-hour days, and it's never like if the phone doesn't buzz with some prevalent and
Mhm.
super important information, you got to at least like figure out what you're going to do with it at that time. And what would you tell someone who wants to get into the investigative side of reporting and in the news side, which is totally different? And if you're listening, you don't kind of know. There's the
Yeah.
kind of the general assignments. Then you get into like the more upper echelon. You kind of get into the senior reporter or investigator or what, however that newsroom or that shop kind of chops it up. But what would you say to someone who's maybe in the general assignment that wants to do what you want to do?
I think that's a great question because there is a big development and evolution, as you know, from the GA world where you're turning and burning every day. And sometimes you're following that story because you feel like it's important. Sometimes it's wiped from your mind and you're on to the next one, or you're waiting for breaking news, and everything is just day by day, day by day. And sometimes you can get mentally burnt out. But I think it's being efficient with your time to find the moments to do records requests, look through court documents, like really do the research, and ask those questions that maybe lead to other requests and research, like constantly doing that and figuring out a way to advance said story. I think that is what separates the real journalists from those who are reporters, because you can report on something by the information you get, whether from a PIO, whether from that source or whatnot, but to really like be a journalist and to really do the research and dig into public records that are available because of the laws we have. That's what can really develop someone into an investigative journalist. And once you're chewing on a story, it's sort of some of them just never stop. Case in
Yeah.
point with what we've done, and you always have something there to update people on, or you're moving on to something totally different. So I could go from doing a day turn one day that's an update on what we've covered in the past to something tomorrow where I've been working on for months and no one's going to see it for another 2, 3 months. Like it just varies.
Do you have a formula to kind of sift through what information you want to keep or latch onto? Is it something that you've kind of developed, or is it kind of, if it jumps out to you on that day, it jumps out to you, or have you come up with like a formula for it?
I think it just depends on, I'll join some of the editorial meetings and see what's happening like today. Like what is
Yeah.
being covered today, what was covered, and if there's a way to help the coverage and maybe it's court records on that said suspect or that situation and I can add to that, then I think that's where the investigative muscle is very useful for day turns. Um, but I try to keep maybe 3 to 4 topics or stories that I'm juggling at the same time, whether it's totally long form, whether it's a more traditional type of package, just all and they kind of all are in their marathon moving at different paces as you get new information or interviews. And I even liken it to a pregnancy. No offense to the moms, but in a news world, like you're working
Yeah.
on this investigation for weeks, months, you're getting everything you need, and finally it goes to air, it's published. It feels like, okay, we've got the
What's
healthy
your
baby.
organization system?
And my organization's just a lot of folders, a
Oh,
lot
okay.
of box folders, hard drives and just notes. And
Yeah.
sometimes, it's just notes in my phone where I'm covering a story somewhere and watching something or someone and I'm
Yeah.
like just voicing to myself a line like in the script. Like
Yeah.
I need to write it now. This will be in my track. I might tweak it later, but I don't want to lose this thought. Or it's okay, make sure call so and so. Like that's just kind of organized on the go. A lot
I
of
think
highlighting and a lot of hard copies. Hard copies are good.
I think no matter what you do in this business as, sports guy or news guy or whatever in between, what you just said, being aware. And you're
Hmm.
you're there for one story, but you have to be spatially aware of what's going on around you because things happen. Like it's being like a detective in some sense, but also if you're just on the sidelines, like notice who's on the sidelines. Is there someone there that you want to talk to, or is there a meeting going on between a coach and a player that seems
Yeah.
out of sort? But you have to be aware, and you can't be so laser focused on what you're there for that you don't see your peripherals.
Yeah, I would say you got to catch yourself, especially for the general assignment reporters when you're covering breaking news or some sort of event or important press conference. Like you can get caught up being on your phone and you're really just like scrolling on stuff after you've done what you need to do. It's like don't get trapped in the
Hmm.
phone. Like do
Yeah,
what
yeah,
you need to do, sort of look around, take photos of what you think would be good for photos or videos, and just be aware of that. Chat with who you need to chat with. And it helps being in the market long enough where it's like, I know for a certain type of story who would be a good source or insight for that story.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I know who to contact if I need this type of information that they may not be the interview, but they're, the spokesperson, public information officer for a set agency. That just takes time and meeting people.
Asian American like myself, Japanese over here. There isn't a ton of representation. We have the AAJA, which is something that we're both a part of. What does it mean to you to kind of represent a whole group of people and be representation for next generation? Have someone like yourself in the position that you're in.
It means the world, honestly, and I always feel like I could do more, as you said, AJA is important to me. I wish I could go every year, but I do enjoy that time reuniting with mentors or other people who came up in the business, with us. I've been the chapter president here in Arizona, and we grew that chapter little by little, and it's good to see more people that come from the same backgrounds have the same passion for journalism. It's not just about like, oh, like you look like me, or like we're born from the same area. It's not just about that, because we're trying to also, the bar is higher. Like, we have to deliver and we have to perform. Um, I think, especially being an Asian American male in the business, that's like it's not a lot. Like, it's good to have Asian Americans in general in journalism, in newsrooms. Um, but I think for me, being in this position, it goes without saying, like, I take it very seriously. One of my mentors at ESPN, Carolyn Hong, pointed out to me months ago, where we were talking just about the future and my career and kind of where it's at. And she said, like, don't just think of yourself as an Asian American reporter in the industry. She told me that you may be one of a handful of Asian American investigative journalists on TV in the country. And that just, like, I don't know, that shook me. And so I think that I take this role, like, as long as I'm in this position, like, I can't see myself doing anything else. Because it goes without saying, like, where I'm from and what I stand for, and my background, my ethnicity, my family, but how I carry myself. And I just want to keep excelling, because I feel like this is in a newsroom. There's not a lot of roles like this, and sometimes they don't even exist.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure and there's stress, but it's very rewarding because you are in control of that story and you are not tied down to time constraints for the most part. And you're getting into some heavy stuff. And it means a lot that I've been given the opportunity to do this, when I didn't have when I started in the sports side of things.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like you were passed up for anything because of your ethnicity or anything like that? Or have you felt like there was anything like that? Because for me personally,
Mm,
I've never felt like being Japanese American has hurt me per se. I mean, we've all gotten comments and I've certainly got emails and things about
yeah,
it. But when it's come to like job profiling, I don't know for me personally if someone's like, oh, if I didn't or did get the job. I mean, obviously going to
yeah,
Hawaii as a Japanese American helps. Like that's just you want people on TV who represent the people in that community. That's kind of how local news works. But for me, so with that being said, I don't think I felt some sort of discrimination to not get a job because of who I am. I don't know if you felt that way.
yeah. I wouldn't really know if in any jobs I
I
have
guess
not
that's true.
gotten. I
We don't
think
know.
we don't know unless they tell us, but I've always like tried to use it. I'm sure you use it as your strength,
Yeah.
something that we're proud of. Being, born and raised in the Bay Area, I think we didn't feel awkward, you know what I
No.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
you grew up in a diverse area. But at the same time, there is that struggle as you're growing up where you're trying to be more Americanized. You're not
Yeah.
speaking the language, the home language as much, whether it's Japanese, Chinese, whatever it is. Like, you're trying to be like your friends or whoever you see in school. And I think now I value that culture more, especially now that I have a kid and I want my daughter to be, cultured and know the language, at least understand the language. And then there was a part of me as I was getting into the business and feeling like I wasn't like Asian enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you know what I
Yeah.
and you know what I mean? Like,
Well,
you just felt like you
yeah.
had to prove that. And
Yeah.
what can you do though? You know what I mean? Like, it's not really in your control. It's in your own mind. It's some
Yeah.
kind of weird insecurity and feeling like the
You either
market
got
you're in.
Yeah, you either gotta be super Asian or not Asian. Like
Yeah.
that's how it kind of felt sometimes. Is like you had to represent more than what you are, and being yourself wasn't enough of one way or the other. And that's also, I'm well coming from mixed race. That's also part of it.
Yeah, I'm sure even harder, yeah, because you're literally 50-50, right? And
Yeah,
and maybe for you being in Hawaii where you have all this culture and you're like, okay, I've got to show them that, like, I can be a part of them, and probably very welcoming, but I don't know, I'm sure that that's like a mental battle as well. But I felt like when you move markets so many times, you're sort of like waiting for a community that reminds you of, your heritage to take you in. But you're moving so much. So, like, in
yeah,
Fresno, it didn't happen. In Tri-Cities, it wasn't happening because, like,
no,
it's me and you.
Well, they used to call me Justin, and they used to call
Oh,
you.
really?
Yeah, I mean, they
Yeah.
used to call they. It's just who was ever there.
Yeah. But it was also cool that like at the station and in sports, it's me and you representing that sports department.
Yeah,
And we
yeah,
happen to be Asian American guys from the Bay Area. And it's like now that I'm thinking about like total for that little market, the barrier is broken. And like
yeah,
maybe we didn't appreciate it at the time as much as now, like thinking back, like, it's pretty cool.
yeah. And
Like
I
it's
think
really, yeah,
you have to be who you are. I think when you get into it, you're like, oh, I got to be who I see on TV already. Like you
yeah.
want to emulate who you see on TV, especially when you're getting the sports world. Like you're like, oh, those voices, those are who I want to be. But you have to be who you are. Like there's a lot of people who push back on my beard for a very long
Mhm.
time. Like they're like, we want you clean shaven, and I'm like, I don't want to be clean shaven. So at some point, I and in our contracts, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't know, we can't really dive into our contracts, but most contracts generally are like we can talk to you about your appearance. Like that's
Mm.
generally a thing in contracts. I don't think we're like breaking any rules by saying that, but so you're always worried like, oh, if I shave or don't shave. But I was like, dude, I'm just gonna wear my beard. And eventually
You rock the beard,
I
man.
just kept wearing the beard, and then eventually no one said anything. So now I just always have the beard. And it just be who you want to be who you are. And I think you're gonna find once you do that, which is a whole nother conversation about finding your voice and finding who you are on TV, which I mean, you and I can be here talking about this stuff for a long, long time, and we'll circle back. We'll come back. I'm sure there's always other times, like when the Raiders win the Super Bowl this year or something like that.
Well, when people to jump on your point, people see authenticity. Like, so you
Yeah,
rocking the beard, that was you. You weren't forced to, and it's almost like at some point people have to accept you. And I got to give it to the viewers or the community where we were when we're at Keeper. Like, no one knocked us for being different. Like
no,
they enjoyed us. They
no,
enjoyed our passion. It was because we were serving the community in a sense, and we
yeah,
were totally I guess excited about it. You know what I mean? They could
yeah,
feel that. So I never got, well, I'm fortunate. No one says about race. You might have felt different because you're in a different world trying to figure it out. But no, it was a good experience. And I will fast forward to Phoenix. Now being here, the Asian American community has totally like rocked with me and totally like asked
yeah,
me to either MC or host things or just show love. And I felt like, okay, this is my community, not just the market and viewers that watch, but people who have similar backgrounds who are totally supportive and have said, just thank you for doing what you do. Like they're rooting me on because of that. So I finally found that, and it feels good because now I feel like I owe just as much to them for showing me that love. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like I want to make sure, and I wish I could do all the, AAPI Heritage Month stories, but I'm focused on the investigations. But there's part of me is like, man, I wish I could do those
Yeah.
stories for a week. But the love is definitely there.
I think that's also going back to more advice is like I tell every young person I know, if you're going to a small market, you better invest in that market. Because if you
Hmm.
don't, they're going to know that you didn't invest and they're not going to take you in. They're going to see right through you as fake and not authentic to your point. And so yeah, that's one of my big things is if you go small market hunting, just be in that community forever long. We're in
Yeah.
Tri-Cities, that was our small market. And so I do blind ranking. We do blind rankings here on The Mic is Open.
Yeah.
And so we're going to take you back and we're going to do blind ranking the these 5 sporting events in the Tri-Cities. So you just tell
Mm.
me what number they're at, okay?
All right.
And this is to you, not to like overall, like my
Yeah.
rankings are different than yours and I could reveal mine later if you want. So we're going to start with the Tri-Cities Americans game.
I will say that ranks for me 3.
Yeah, I thought that
Yeah.
sounds about right. That's
Right in
right.
the middle there.
It is always a fun time to go though. You're
And
shooting
I
up there.
always remember, yeah, and it was a challenge for me to shoot hockey. I never shot hockey before. And for
Mhm.
you, like you love hockey, so like you have that sense and that feeling.
Yeah.
But I was scared, like to miss a goal, and then you just get into it. And then I remember there's a kid, he was a baby, and he had the
Yeah,
headphones, the
yeah,
muffs, and
yeah.
I'd always get a shot of him as a cutaway. He's sitting right there, and
Was
I
his
think
name
I'm
was his
Facebook
name
friends.
Caden? Caden?
Caden or
Some
Jackson or
I don't know.
something.
Yeah.
He's a super cute baby and a great cutaway, and now he's probably all grown up. But
Yep.
like That was awesome.
The cutaways at the Tri-City Americans games were
Oh
fantastic.
my
They're so
goodness.
they did the what was the shirtless
The
song?
the dance, yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, the country dance.
Yeah, yeah. All right, and
Yeah.
then next on the list is I'm putting them together.
Okay.
Sweets baseball, Dust Devils baseball.
Sweet sweat. I'll go with, you know what? Because I have a feeling what else I'm gonna say four.
Going four. All right. Not a big baseball guy.
Well, I like the drive to Walla Walla is tough.
Yeah, yeah,
Out
that
there,
is
you know what
tough.
I mean? You did it a lot.
I was gonna do blind ranking the worst drives in Tri Cities to cover a game.
That's like an hour. Is it an hour?
Yeah, it's an hour five, I think.
And then you'd rush back and you're trying and you want to drive safe and you got to cut the highlights. You
It's
did,
not a safe drive. It's not a
dude.
safe drive.
I don't know how you did that all the time. Now, Dust
Uh,
Devils games, there was a vibe. It was,
yeah,
it was just a good vibe to be at Dust Devils games. It's close.
down the
And
street.
yeah, yeah, get yourself some snacks. And it was,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, I put them together because they're both summer baseball.
Yeah.
I love the ice cream at Sweets games. I just always had an order that I would go there. I loved going to Sweets games. Dust Devils is great too. You're behind home plate.
Yeah.
You got to be part of it. So yeah, so you went four there, right? We're at three and
Yeah.
four. Next up, a big time prep football game. Chihuahua Kamaikan, Richland Chihuahua. One of those.
And you got to go one.
Yeah,
Football, high school football, Friday Night Fever.
yeah,
That's big time.
yeah.
Especially, yeah, Richland. You're at Richland, or you're in Pasco for Chihuahua, or you get in Richland, Chihuahua,
Yeah.
or you got Kamayakin going on, and you got Zach Borish. Let's hear it, Zach
Hollywood
Borish
Boris,
slinging it.
baby.
Dude,
He's gonna love that we mentioned him. I still say contact.
I'm shouting him out.
I think he's 26 now, which is
He's
outrageous.
he's a stud, man. A lot of great athletes there, but
Yeah.
it's like, and I felt like we wanted to give them that treatment. The ones that worked hard and deserved it, and they're balling out, and good kids. Of course.
The small market high school football is phenomenal. And even like
Yeah,
Hawaii, obviously Hawaii has good, but they didn't have the student sections. The student sections in Tri-City, shout out to
yeah.
everyone, Run Kano, the Bomb Squad, Dog Pound, all of them. Great student section. So we're
Mm-hmm.
going to shout out to the Tri-City student section. You go number one there. Next on this list is covering a state tournament in Seattle.
Oh, well, I did that. I did it once or twice.
I think you did it twice. I think you did it once with Vince. You did it once.
Yeah,
You did it once with the
basketball.
transition. Yeah, yeah.
Then I'm gonna go with two because that was a memorable experience. Even though I didn't do it all the time, did a couple
Yeah.
times. But I remember when I covered the Kamaikan girls and they went on that big run.
Yeah.
And they were just so fun to like getting that access and follow them. It's like we were really getting good stuff there and memories that they probably will have forever.
Yeah, that was cool things. Like you were maybe one or two cameras that would go. We
Yeah.
were pretty good about going a day early or whatever. And then also I loved during basketball season when you go across the Cascades and it's all super snowy and it just looks like a winter wonderland. Growing up where we grew up, like
Hmm.
we didn't get that. Like we're not seeing
Yeah.
like that. So that was cool. And then the last one, what do you think's the last one I'm gonna give you?
I don't know. Now I feel if it's great, I'll feel bad because now it's stuck at
No,
five.
I'm pretty sure you're gonna be okay with this.
Uh,
Water Follies.
oh, see, I made a good decision. I'm sorry, but like water follies for us, not fun. For
It's
if you're there for water follies and you're drinking and partying, like that's
yeah,
great.
yeah,
But
yeah,
for us, it's just like hot.
yeah.
You got the sun beaming on you, and you're just getting the boat races. Like, there's not really like a fine skill to that, is there? To shoot that?
No, no. I mean, the boats were cool. I just never, yeah, I was never a big water follies
Oh
guy.
man.
I liked going like the day before when you could go down the pits and kind of see the boats and like during the practice, I guess. But yeah, and there's also chaos. Like there's always drunk people, and so you're never sure like what
Yeah.
was gonna happen.
It stays
Yeah,
at five for me.
yeah,
I've
your
got
list
a
was pretty
great,
good.
that's a
Your
good
list, good
ranking.
list. So you went just to recap, we went high school prep football, big time. That was
Mhm.
good. Student section number one, number
Friday
two.
Night Lights.
Yep, traveling over Seattle to Tacoma. It was really Tacoma, I should say, Tacoma for state tournaments, which was also really cool. Then you had Dust Devil, or no, I'm sorry, you had the Tri City Americans.
Yeah.
Number 3, you had Summer Baseball, Sweets and Dust Devils 4, and we wrapped the whole thing up with Water Follies.
And I'll give some honorable
Yeah,
mentions
I wanted
to
honorable mention.
community college basketball. Was that
CBC.
CVC, freaking CVC basketball, guys, girls. It was like always just solid highlights,
Yeah.
and Tri-City Fever indoor
Hmm.
football when
I
they
never
were
got
there.
Fever. I
Yeah,
never
it
got
was.
them.
I got to, get some good highlights. It's just there's so many highlights go around, scoring touchdowns all the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was good.
All right, so we
Good times.
wrapped up our Tri-Cities, our local news circuit, our industry talk. But I think this also was part of it. We're going to our dad talk here. I got you for a few more minutes. When you had your baby girl,
Mhm.
how did that change? You alluded to it, but how did that really change things as far as your balance between work and job? I'm sorry, work
Yeah.
and professional life or work and
Work,
life.
work, work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was that was a challenge because obviously you go through the pandemic, you can't go into the doctor appointments, and then finally it's like so you don't really get to prep.
Yeah, yeah. That's
All of a
true. You did it
sudden,
very different. Yeah.
it's delivery time, and you're in there. It's like you suit up and you go, and it's just an incredible experience. And all that matters is, she's healthy, and it's just. And then I just remember that drive home, super slow, 20 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour, driving the streets back home, and then the lack of sleep, obviously. But like as you get back into work and after paternity leave, I worked night side as general assignment reporter. I was still not promoted to this position yet, so I'd wake up early in the morning and be with her through the morning. We'd go get Starbucks, and she'd go with me. And then as I'm like putting her down for a nap, I'm like checking for emails. I was literally physically balancing
Yeah.
being a dad and work and trying to set up stories and like good stories, like exclusive stories if I can for later, reading through court documents on my phone. She's asleep or I'm playing with her, things like that. Go to work in the afternoon, do the whole thing till 10:30 at night, come home and like, you're wired. You stay up for a while and crash, and then, you wake up in the middle of the night when you have to, and then you do it all again. So it was a very tiring time, but fun. It was a blur.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
go through all the phases of the baby world.
Were you ever told that you couldn't do or reach the heights that you wanted to reach if you had a family and kids?
No, I don't think I would say that, but I think that as far as like the possibility of any, people talk about network and being a correspondent, things like that, obviously it's very clear that if you want to do that, you're not really going to have family life. Like it's
Yeah.
hard to balance. You're out of your house for however much time of the year. So yeah, but no one had ever kind of said you can't get this far if you have a family. It was
I had
always going to be a point where I had a family.
I had people tell me like you can't have a significant other. You can't have like you can't do it because you're just not the amount of weight that it takes to do it. And I almost
Mhm.
feel like yeah, that's true. Like you're talking about correspondent, you just had to wait till like 10 more years, 13 more years, and then when she moves out, then you could do what you need to do. But I always think like to me, if I would have embraced this earlier, it almost makes you better because you have to be so precise with your time that there's not a lot of wasted effort anymore,
Yeah,
right? Like you go into when you're at home, okay? You're focused on being at home. When you go to work, you put all your effort into work. You're not going out and partying, right? You're not going out and
yeah.
you're not having too many beers or too many drinks and then the next day you're basically worthless. Like everything is so dialed in that I think it almost makes you a more efficient person.
Yeah, you are protecting a little child's life and you are responsible for them. And so everything you do, every decision you make, whether it's for fun or not, like you have to consider how are you going to be performance-wise as a dad and a husband. And there are the late nights that you're working too. So it's just you're trying to preserve yourself and not burn out. But that's why that like support system is so crucial because I know if I've got to do a film session at nighttime and I'm staking out some building or whatever I'm doing, I just got to communicate that to my wife and say, this is one of those nights where I'm going to be home late. And I think it just gets to a point where there's no There's no other extra talk about it. You just do it and figure it out. And you disregard and eliminate all the stuff that doesn't make you better and distracts. So yeah, the more responsibility, like the better you are as a professional.
Does it allow you to decompress easier when you come home to her and you don't have to deal with all that, and it almost makes it easier when you go to work? Or do you feel like it haunts you a little bit?
I think I'm good at compartmentalizing. I
Yeah.
think you have to be with the stuff, with the interviews, with the evidence and stuff we read and go through. So like I only talk about it if I have to talk about it, or if I'm maybe I could be excited about it, whatever the project is, and say, oh, we got this or that, and I'll tell Laura. But for the most part, try to turn it off and um, just de-stress. Watch
Yeah.
some Love is Blind. Watch some reality TV, some
That's
Bachelor in
right. That's
Paradise.
right. Uh,
Something like that. It just takes your mind off everything and then get back to it later.
all right, so I told you I was going to keep you for a little bit, so we're not going to go any longer, but we have to wrap at least one question about WrestleMania. So
Yeah.
real quickly, before we wrap this thing up, what was your best memory about our time at Allegiant Stadium and everything that came with it? We had a pretty sweet hookup. We probably should run it back, but yeah, what's real quick your favorite thing about WrestleMania weekend?
Oh man. I thought it was 2 nights and it was just like I don't know, it was like being a kid in the candy store
Yeah,
and it's amazing food, amazing drinks and just, being able to I don't know, man. It was just awesome. It was like a movie. And
yeah, it
just
was.
all the ambiance. It was just like this. You just had to soak it in. And you're not hearing like TV commentary, right? Like you're just hearing the mat and you're hearing the cheers.
Yeah,
Uh, and I obviously I think in my mind, well, both main events, John Cena, Cody Rhodes, and then you've got the triple threat,
yeah,
Roman Reigns, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, your guy. Like were both just awesome. But there were other matches that were it was just all around was
yeah,
awesome. Shout out to my boy Marcus
yeah. That's
hooking
right,
us up,
Marcus.
taking us around Allegiant, taking care of us, and yeah, man, that was and I told you that was my only. I'd never been to like a live wrestling event.
Yeah, that was your first one. Now you can never
How?
go
Yeah,
back.
I could. This is that. That's it. Doesn't get better.
No. All right. Well, we got to dive into WrestleMania weekend again. We'll bring you back. We'll talk about whatever else we want to talk about at some point. But I appreciate you taking your lunch break and enjoying the mic is open with me. And hopefully you still get to eat.
Appreciate you, man.
All right, bro. I'll talk to you soon.